did a crashed F-35 turn into a conspiracy theory involving China and Cuba and trick a prominent political commentator to repeat disinformation? Well, I'm going to track it back to its inception. I'm also going to cover some of the dip or deceptive imagery persuasion used during the event. Now, this video is probably going to get shared a lot, so allow me to introduce myself. My name is Ryan McBeth. I spent 20 years as an infantryman, mainly doing heavy weapons and anti-tank stuff. I have a bachelor's in computer science, a master's in engineering management, and an MSc in cybersecurity. In my civilian job, I used to write C4ISR software, which is software that finds bad guys, often resulting in kinetic consequences for the target. Today, I do YouTube and Substack full-time. I also do consulting for a private intelligence agency called Velocity. By the way, if you're a company who's interested in managing risk or a political campaign that wants to see how foreign interests are manipulating your public image, head on over to velocity.com. We can help you out, and we are nonpartisan. All of the data in this video and the timeline is on my Substack at ryanmcbeth.substack.com. Note that all times are in Eastern Time since Twitter converts it to where you are located. If you want the PowerPoint slides for this, you can find them in the members section of my Substack. Special thanks to my Substack subscribers. I'm able to pay my rent because of you guys. If you're not a Substack subscriber and you got $5, consider joining. Let's get started. So, what started out as a simple airplane mishap ended up becoming a conspiracy theory involving China and Cuba and computer hacking that went viral. In this case, a user named Gunther Eagleman, an account with almost 400,000 followers, and former presidential advisor George Papadopoulos were tricked into repeating disinformation, which was initially generated by an account with only 300 followers. Here's how it happened. On September 7th, on or around 2-3 p.m., an F-35 fighter from Marine Attack Squadron 501 experienced a mishap about a mile north of Charleston International Airport in South Carolina. Now, the pilot either ejected manually or was ejected by the plane. We don't know what happened yet. But that's right. The F-35B model that the Marines use can actually auto-eject its pilot. Auto-ejection is actually a safety feature of the Mark 16 ejection seat. The B model of the F-35 can hover with a lift fan, so it may be necessary to eject the pilot automatically if they're hovering and something goes wrong. It's even in the brochure, so put a pin in that auto-ejection feature. It's going to become important later. The pilot eventually walked to South Kenwood Drive and knocked on a homeowner's door and asked to use the phone. He was taken to his local hospital and evaluated for injuries. Now, ejection is a very violent action. People get hurt during the process, so put a pin in that one too. It'll be important later as well. Now, the plane kept flying for about 60 miles or so after the ejection until it crashed in a field in Indiantown, South Carolina. Note that modern aircraft like the F-35 are designed to maintain conditions without a pilot's hands being on the controls. So if you're straight and level, the plane is going to continue flying straight and level until told otherwise or something goes wrong. Now, the first mention of the mishap in the news happens at 3:01 p.m. From WCBD in North Charleston, and it starts to make its way around the internet. The Daily Mail, a British newspaper, picks up the story at 4:06 p.m. Now, the first instance of misinformation on Twitter comes up at 4:37 p.m. from user RR13NYC. And this tweet says, F-35 plane missing after Marine pilot ejected over Charleston for thought crimes. And this person references a Daily Mail article, which incidentally says nothing about thought crime. By the way, I can't believe I have to mention this, but apparently not everybody has read the George Orwell dystopian novel 1984, but in that novel, thought crime was simply thinking unorthodox thoughts was considered to be a crime against the state. So I fired up a tool that I use called Cyabra. Velocity uses this tool for social media threat detection, and I identified this particular user, RR13NYC, as a negative spreader. So this is where it all starts. Now, the Marine F-35s were based at Marine Corps Air Station Beaufort, and they were about a mile from Charleston International Airport when this mishap happened. Note that Charleston International Airport is jointly owned by the Department of Defense and the Charleston County Aviation Authority. So if you see different names in the news and different names on tweets, that's why it's a jointly owned base. At 5:18 p.m., a tweet went out from Joint Base Charleston, which is the Department of Defense side of the Charleston International Airport, and it reads, "We're working with MCAS Beaufort, South Carolina to locate one of their F-35s that was involved in a mishap near our base this afternoon. The pilot ejected safely. If you have any information on the whereabouts of the F-35, please call the Base Operations Center." Now, all right, I think this is kind of what started the ball rolling here with the misinformation, with the text, if you have any information on the whereabouts of the F-35. If the person who wrote this tweet maybe used different language, none of what happened next might have happened. But, you know, if I had some ham, I'd have some ham and eggs if I had some eggs. The person who wrote this immediately realized that it was a bad choice of words, and they edited the tweet 18 minutes later to read, "We're working with MCAS Beaufort SC to locate an F-35 that was involved in mishap this afternoon. The pilot ejected safely. If you have any information that may help our recovery teams locate the F-35, please call the Base Defense Operations Center." But it was too late, and the jokes start about the original tweet. And it's an easy thing, right? Because the jokes kind of write themselves. Now, the first conspiracy theory starts at 5:20, with this user referencing the Daily Mail article with the text, "Why did an F-35 go missing over Charleston, South Carolina? Could it be missing for a reason? Was the pilot compromised? Did the Biden administration give away our F-35 to the CCP, or the Chinese Communist Party?" So now this kind of gets interesting. If you're a child of the 70s like me, you probably remember the book MiG Pilot by John Barron, which detailed an event back in 1983 where a MiG-25 pilot, a Russian MiG-25 pilot named Viktor Belenko, defected to Japan with his jet. There's no evidence that the F-35 pilot performed any kind of defection. And if you take a look at this particular user's history, they are identified as a negative spreader. It should be noted that there's been only one American pilot ever to defect, and that was during World War II. The officer's name was Lieutenant Martin James Monty, a P-38 reconnaissance pilot who stole and then flew his plane to the German-occupied city of Milan with the express purpose to defect and serve in the German Luftwaffe. Now, the odds of an American pilot defecting are incredibly low. Pilots are pretty well background checked and have some pretty extensive security clearances. Pilots also like to fly. And if you like to fly, there's no organization that gives you more hours than the American military. A lot of other militaries don't even get a fraction of the time American pilots get in the sky. Next up, an account called Shadows 653 says at 5:42 p.m., "So there was a missing F-35 jet. Isn't this an international security issue? How the hell do you eject and lose the plane, bro, unless it was controlled by somebody else?" Now, based on the language analysis of this person's tweets, it is likely this person is a teenager or a young adult, and their pattern of life indicates that they're probably a high school student. So that being said, the average high school student probably wouldn't know this, but back in 1970, a pilot ejected from an Air Force F-106 Delta Dart, and the interceptor actually landed on its own in a belly landing in a snowy farmer's field. So it can theoretically happen that a plane can keep flying after you eject. Now, this particular person tweets again at 5:45, "There is no additive search going on for the missing F-35 in Charleston County, South Carolina. According to the radar, nobody is looking for nothing. This is a national security issue. Advanced military jet just disappeared after you eject." So that is certainly an opinion a person can have. But if you take a look at 4:08 p.m., which was 1 hour and 37 minutes before Shadow 653 made his tweet, a news reporter named Julia Richardson from WFMB News recorded a Florence County Sheriff's Department helicopter lifting off for search and rescue. The first instance of deceptive imagery persuasion, or DIP, starts at 6:02 p.m. with a user named Mustafa Baradine, who links to an article about a crash from May of 2019 with the text, "Defective fuel tube caused September F-35 crash in South Carolina report." The user then goes on to edit his tweet, removing the word September. Now, the first instance of negative sentiments about the military occurs at 6:22 with a username chaosmeter saying, "How do you not know where your multi-million-dollar F-35 jet crashed at outside of Charleston, SC? Our military are a bunch of idiots." Now, deceptive imagery pops up again. A user account called War Monitor displays the pictures of a crash that actually happened in 2018. The first mention of China taking over the jet occurs at 6:14 from a username GLCM. And the user states, "If the pilot ejected and they know he is safe, how far did the plane go after he ejected? Or did China take over control remotely and is now flying it?" By 6:55, the first case of landing itself and ejection occurs from this tweet from Aldous Ozalis. Now the conspiracy theories start to gain steam. Now there's enough bouncing around in the echo chamber to make people think that this is a real event. For example, user Tia Puffalot states at 7:52, "An F-35 went down today. That's a 1 billion plane, and now they are searching for it. What the heck is going on, Air Force? At this point, these planes are falling out of the sky. You guys need to make a statement. Is it Russia, China? Is it an EMP or satellite?" So now the theory is out in the wild. What's interesting is that nobody actually seems to know the price of an F-35. Some say it's 80 million, some say it's 1.7 trillion. This isn't like buying a loaf of bread. Different countries may choose different options, and that cost is reduced if you buy more units. So if you buy 100 units one year and 5 units in another year, the cost is going to be higher per unit if you buy the 5 units. So I'm not going to nitpick price. It's tough to nail down the exact cost of a bird over a span of years with inflation and different features and multiple orders of different types. Remember, there's 3 models of the F-35, the A model, the B model, and the C model. The A model for the Air Force, the B model for the Marine Corps, and certain foreign exports, and the C model for the Navy. Now, at 7:57 p.m., an interesting tweet from user Kathy Collum says, "The Pentagon has temporarily halted F-35 deliveries after discovering that a Chinese-sourced alloy had been used to make a key magnet in the fighter. The Pentagon has also stopped accepting newly built F-35s from Lockheed until tech trials are finished." And this is misleading. This actually did happen in September of 2022, but deliveries resumed in October of that year. So this is deceptive. Now, it's not until the next day, on September 18th at 11:17 a.m., that a user named JMichaelKP62 posts a picture with the range of the F-35 and the text, "Based on fuel capacity with a full tank, the missing F-35 could be anywhere in this 1,200-mile radius. China is heavily involved in Cuba." I'm not sure if this particular user knows about mid-air refueling, but let's just go with this one. All right. The user then shows a map with a radius. Note that this person has been identified by cyber software to be a negative spreader. So this is the point where things start to pivot in favor of the China-Cuba conspiracy. Then at 11:58 a.m., a Twitter user named Alert Channel says, "Breaking! Unidentified F-35 lands in Havana. The Cuban government has not released any information yet." Now, it should be noted that Alert Channel's profile says, "In principle, we do not cite any sources. We do not guarantee the verification of our releases. Do your own research." What a coincidence. That's what I'm doing right now. So if you're subscribed to this user, you may want to think before referencing that channel as a source. The first super spreader event occurs at 12 p.m. when political advisor George Papadopoulos tweets, "The military is asking for the public to find the missing," quotes, "F-35 that a pilot ejected from while it was on autopilot. The transponder now does not work. The plane is likely en route to one destination based on fuel capacity, Cuba, where China has just built a military base." Mr. Papadopoulos then uses the same map in roughly the same language as the tweet launched from JMichaelKP62, although he doesn't provide an attribution. So that's kind of interesting. Now a person who has a lot of followers and some foreign policy knowledge is comfortable enough repeating something because there's enough echoing going on, and it's easy enough to just kind of right-click and copy this image and repost it. 2 hours later, a second super spreader begins, and this is at 2 p.m. on September 18th. Twitter user Gunther Eagleman says, "Dear Joe Biden, Thank you for delivering the F-35 to Havana. We will be sending it straight to our intelligence factory in China this afternoon. The wire transfer to the Biden crime family will process today. Regards, Communist Party of China. It should be noted that the debris of the F-35 was found at or around 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time on September 18th, 2023, just a couple of hours after this person tweeted that misinformation. So what are the takeaways? Well, the first is that a negative spreader with roughly 1,500 followers was able to influence a guy like George Papadopoulos. Mr. Papadopoulos has a master's in security studies, and he was one of President Trump's foreign policy advisors. The guy also speaks 4 languages. We're not dealing with a person who isn't able to process information regarding foreign policy and military activities. So if the negative spreader could influence someone who is well educated in foreign policy, what does that say about the rest of us? Second, only 0.5% of anyone in America has ever served in the military. So people who don't know much about the military can be influenced by things that sound like they could be true. The F-35B and C models also have an auto landing capability called JPALS, or Joint Precision Approach and Landing System. So if you've ever heard of JPALS from a Discovery Channel documentary about aircraft carriers or on Reddit today, I learned that could easily lead you down the path of thinking that China could auto-land the jet. So we may have some confirmation bias there, where you've heard of JPALS and you think, yeah, China could have landed it, because I remember seeing that Discovery documentary about JPALS. So that's all well and good, but you need a ship, like a Navy ship, equipped with the JPALS system to talk the aircraft in and guide it in. There are portable JPALS systems, but that would be some James Bond, James Reese level stuff to steal one of those systems and get it to Cuba. So the average person's lack of military knowledge, of basic military knowledge, probably contributed to this misinformation. Third thing, back in March of 2022, an F-35 Charlie model used by the Navy was recovered at a depth of 12,000 feet from the bottom of the South China Sea after it crashed while trying to land on the USS Carl Vinson. So if President Biden wanted to give an F-35 to China, we just would have left it at the bottom of the sea for them to pick up. You wouldn't need to have this entire convoluted operation involving ejection where things could go wrong. Usually the simple plan is the better plan. Also keep in mind that ejection is very dangerous. If China really wanted to steal an F-35 and had the capability to do so, it actually would have been safer to bring the pilot with the plane and land that plane in Cuba with the pilot in it. Now you've got a plane, you've got a person who knows how to operate it, and you've got another bargaining chip, because America doesn't leave people behind, and we would do what it took to get that pilot back. But that being said, in all honesty, an F-35 isn't all that special in an engineering sense. Plenty of planes have stealth coatings now. What's important is the C4ISR, the tech that allows the surveillance and targeting and talking with other aircraft and systems. That's what really makes the F-35 special, the C4ISR, the stuff that I used to work on. In fact, it's better to think of the F-35 as a flying supercomputer than an invisible jet. And it would be far easier for China to use LinkedIn elicitation to gain the trust of software developers who work for Lockheed Martin than it would be to steal a jet. I'm sure anybody who has a LinkedIn as a middle-aged male has encountered these Chinese elicitation agents. I get one about once a week. Finally, I'm a software engineer and a cyber guy. I know a little bit about hacking, and it's not like in the movies where you're trying to guess a password. It depends on the system you're trying to infiltrate, but you usually need a system to test against in order to figure out how to attack it. So since China probably doesn't have F-35 software and systems to practice attacking against, it's doubtful they could even attempt this, even if it were theoretically possible. Now, one last thing. As we delve into the complexities of modern information warfare, it is evident that anyone can fall prey to misleading information, regardless of their background or their education. In this era of rapid communication and global connectivity, it is our collective responsibility to verify information we encounter and rely on trusted sources. Hey, all I'm asking you to do is just think before amplifying someone's message. Hey, if you want to support the channel, head on over to Bunker Branding and get a Rock Out with Your Chalk Out shirt. It all goes to support the channel and make content like this. You can also join my Substack for $5 or get a cameo greeting for the person in your life who loves the channel. And thank you so much for watching.
Hey everyone! New Ryan McBeth t-shirts and hoodies from Bunker Branding are available. I'm gonna get the HIMARS shirt. What are you gonna get, Donald? The Patriot shirt, because I'm a patriot. It's the best shirt, the biggest shirt. Make 14 tangos great again. What are you gonna get, Barack? Let me be clear. I'm gonna get a Drone Sweet Drone shirt. What about you, George?
I'm gonna get a Knife Hand shirt because they're weapons of mass destruction. What about you, Billy?
Oh, I'm going to get a landmine marker shirt because my presidency always blew up in my face.
I'll tell you what I'm gonna get.
Ronald Reagan, but you're dead.
I came back to tell you that no matter our politics, we're all Americans. And we should buy Ryan's hoodies and t-shirts because they pay for the stock footage and licenses that allow him to make awesome content. So come on down to Bunker Branding and buy a Ryan McBeth t-shirt or I'll start the bombing in 5 minutes.